In order to hide his affair, he murdered his stepdaughter. In the peaceful suburb of Millbrook, the brutal murder of 17-year-old Sarah Thompson shatters the illusion of safety, sending shockwaves through the community. Detective Michael Carter is called to investigate the case, only to uncover a web of secrets, betrayal, and hidden desires that threaten to unravel everything he knows about truth and justice. As the lines between love and obsession blur, Carter must race against time to reveal the dark forces at play before another life is lost. In a town where everyone wears a mask, can he trust anyone, even himself? The idea of tranquil suburban life was shattered by a horrific crime in the calm hamlet of Millbrook, Connecticut, which is tucked away just outside the busy city of Hartford. In September 2018, a cool autumn morning found 17-year-old Sarah Thompson's body in the woods outside her family's house. Residents of the community were left trapped in their homes and talking in whispers about the murderer who had passed by after the horrific scene sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. The Hartford Police Department's veteran investigator, Detective Michael Carter, was brought in to take charge of the case. A complex web of falsehoods and deceit surrounding Sarah's death with his keen intuition and unflinching commitment. He had no idea that this case would put his beliefs to the test and have him face the worst sides of human nature. As the investigation progressed, Amanda Wilson, Sarah's stepmother, came under early suspicion. Their neighbors had known about their tumultuous relationship for some time, and Amanda's evident jealousy of her stepdaughter appeared to be the catalyst. But beneath the surface of this apparently simple case was a convoluted story of treachery, murder, and dire repercussions. Robert Wilson, Sarah's stepfather and a well-liked businessman and community leader, was at the core of this tragedy. Robert seemed to be his wife's mourning father, helping her get through their mutual grief. However, as Detective Carter would soon find out, beneath Robert's well-maintained exterior was a network of deceit that would ultimately bring him to ruin. This is the tale of a murder that destroyed a family, tested the resolve of a detective, and exposed the terrible results of unbridled desire and treachery. It's a terrifying reminder that sometimes the most dangerous predators are right there in our own neighborhoods, lurking in plain sight and donning the guise of normalcy. Just a few weeks shy of turning 18, Sarah Thompson's life was tragically cut short. She was a bright and promising young woman. Born in 2001 to Amanda Thompson, a single mother, Sarah was a bright and inquisitive youngster who was constantly ready to learn new things and discover her surroundings. Sarah displayed a love of books and the arts at a young age. Her educators frequently acknowledged her originality and perceptive essays, identifying her as a pupil with enormous promise. The walls of Sarah's high school were covered with her artwork, and she had lately taken up photography, taking pictures of the natural beauty in the woods behind her house, the same woods that would later become the scene of her tragic death. Even while Sarah excelled academically and artistically, her home situation was anything but ideal. Her mother married the prosperous local businessman Robert Wilson when she was 12 years old. Although Sarah at first appreciated the security Robert provided to their lives, as Sarah approached her teenage years, the dynamic between stepdaughter and stepfather became more tense. Sarah was characterized as fiercely independent but kind-hearted by friends and classmates. Her close-knit group of friends was small, and she was well known for speaking out against bullying at school. Emily Chun, Sarah's closest friend, recalls her aspiration to study journalism at NYU with the goal of becoming an investigative reporter and unearthing secrets that lay beyond the surface. There had always been tension in Sarah's relationship with her mother, Amanda. For years, Sarah had been Amanda's entire world as an only child. But when Robert entered their lives, things started to change. Sarah frequently believed that her mother valued her new marriage more than their relationship as mother and daughter, which resulted in frequent disagreements and emotional detachment. Those who knew Sarah well observed a shift in her personality in the months preceding her passing. She started to retreat more and more, spending more time by herself in her room or taking long walks in the woods with her camera. Her usually rigorous academics started to falter, and her artwork started to reflect darker themes. Emily recalled that Sarah appeared preoccupied and anxious, but that when confronted, she would dismiss worries with a phony grin and divert the conversation. Nobody realized at the moment that Sarah had accidentally discovered a deadly secret. She had discovered something in her pursuit of the truth and her innate curiosity that someone would kill to keep secret. Just as Sarah Thompson was about to enter adulthood, her promising and potential-filled youth was cut short, leaving a bereaved town and a mystery that would rock Millbrook to its foundation. At 45 years old, when Sarah was killed, Robert Wilson portrayed himself as the pinnacle of suburban prosperity. Robert was a well-liked and recognized financial advisor who had established a prosperous practice in Hartford, overseeing the assets of some of the wealthiest citizens of the city. He was an obvious leader in the town, coaching young soccer players and serving on the local chamber of commerce due to his professional look and self-assured manner. Robert was brought up in a working-class household in Boston and used a combination of cunning charm and unwavering determination to climb the social ladder. In 2012, he attended a charity banquet where he met Amanda Thompson. Their brief but intense romance led to marriage in just 8 months. From the outside, Robert seemed like the ideal stepfather and spouse, giving Amanda and Sarah security and stability. But beyond the surface of respectability and success, Robert was hiding some dark secrets and unmet aspirations. His marriage to Amanda had become dull quickly, and he was drawn to the thrill of having an extramarital affair. Robert had been deeply in love with Elena Gonzalez, his next-door neighbor and good friend David's wife, for the previous year. There was more to Robert and Elena's affair than just physical attraction. In her company, he felt fully alive, feeling a connection he thought he had never experienced with Amanda. While their husbands were at work or running errands, the two lovers would meet in secret and share passionate moments. In order to continue living a double life, Robert became an expert at lying and controlling others around him. Robert grew more and more uncomfortable with Sarah as she hit her late teens. He was afraid she would find out about his infidelity because of her sharp observational skills and perception. He started to avoid spending time by himself with his stepdaughter and would make up reasons to skip get-togethers and dinners. Robert was characterized by friends and co-workers as affable and giving, always willing to lend a hand or crack a joke. Unaware of Robert's treachery, David Gonzalez frequently complimented him on being the greatest friend and neighbor a man could ask for. Robert's clientele was lured to him by his remarkable track record and confident assurances, which instilled faith in him. However, those closest to Robert felt a simmering unhappiness. In the months preceding Sarah's passing, his financial company assistant observed a rise in his irritation and distraction. Robert seemed to be living on edge, as if he was always watching over his shoulder, according to Mark Stevens, a longtime buddy from college. Nobody could have predicted that beneath Robert Wilson's meticulously cultivated persona was a man capable of atrocious deeds, motivated by a desperate attempt to keep his secrets and maintain his way of life at any costs. On September 15, 2018, a jogger making his daily route through the woods behind the Wilson residence made the horrifying discovery. Under a heap of leaves and branches, Sarah Thompson's body was partially hidden, a clumsy attempted deception that did nothing to obscure the horrifying nature of the murder. Within an hour, Detective Michael Carter was on the scene, his skilled eye picking up on every detail. There were marks of a severe struggle on Sarah's body. Her face and arms were covered in bruises, and her hands had defensive wounds that showed she had struggled mightily to survive. It was quickly clear that she had died from a jagged wound to her throat, most likely with a serrated blade. Carter made many important observations while the forensics team searched the area for evidence. Friends said Sarah often brought her camera on her forays into the woods, but it was gone. The body appeared to have been transported from the original attack site, based on drag marks and disturbed foliage, presumably in an effort to conceal it from being discovered right away. The absence of any indications of a sexual assault is perhaps the most significant factor, which made Carter believe that a personal rather than an opportunistic motivation drove the murder. The attack's savagery suggested that it was the work of a person who knew Sarah and had been enraged to the point of losing control. The once calm town of Millbrook fell into a frenzy of terror and suspicion as word of the murder spread. Once again, neighbors who had left their doors unlocked checked the security systems. The woods, which had previously been a recreational area, was roped off with yellow police tape and became a no-go area as parents kept their kids inside. With a grim determination, Hartford Police Department veteran detective Michael Carter took leadership of the investigation. He has 20 years of experience. Carter was well known for his painstaking methods and remarkable ability to spot connections that others overlooked. He had resolved some of the most difficult cases in the department. He knew this case would put him to the test like never before as he stood in the Wilsons' living room, taking in the family portraits on the mantel. The investigation's initial 48 hours were filled with a flurry of activity. Initial interviews were done by Carter and his crew with neighbors, friends, and family. Sarah's travels in the days preceding her death were painstakingly recreated, her school records were reviewed, and her social media accounts were closely monitored. Robert Wilson gave a thorough description of his whereabouts on the night of the murder, seeming to be in shock. Security footage and his assistant's testimony supported his allegation that he was working late at his office. Amanda Wilson, who was still clearly upset, found it difficult to remain composed throughout the interview. She acknowledged that the afternoon before her abduction, she had clashed with Sarah, but she maintained that it was just normal mother-daughter conflict. As Carter dug further, a picture of a tense household started to take shape. The neighbors told stories of frequent fights between Sarah's mother and herself, with the high voices frequently echoing over well-kept lawns. Emily Chun, Sarah's closest friend, disclosed that Sarah had been feeling stuck and misinterpreted at home, which had been making her sad. The early results obtained by the forensic team raised more questions than they answered. Samples taken from Robert and Amanda did not match the trace evidence discovered on Sarah's clothing. Despite a thorough search of the Wilson property and its surroundings, the murder weapon, likely a hunting knife or other similar serrated blade, was unable to be found. When Carter spoke with Elena Gonzalez, the Wilsons' next-door neighbor, a breakthrough occurred. During the interview, Elena, who was obviously anxious, revealed that the day before Sarah vanished, she had witnessed Sarah and Amanda fighting in the driveway. What's more interesting is that Elena revealed Amanda had always seemed envious of her daughter's beauty and youth. This revelation, along with Amanda's unstable alibi for the murderous night and the turbulent family atmosphere, caused Carter to concentrate his attention on Sarah's mother. According to his theory, the long-standing animosity had now reached a boiling point, leading to a potentially fatal altercation. Carter was certain that they were headed in the right direction as the investigation's second week got underway. He applied for a search warrant to examine Amanda's private property and correspondence in the hopes of discovering the vital piece of information that would blow the case wide open. But there was a persistent question in the back of Carter's mind. He found Robert Wilson's cool-headedness and flawless alibi to be overly organized and practical. Carter had no idea that his gut was guiding him toward a reality far darker than anything he could have dreamed up. All indications seemed to lead to Amanda Wilson as the main suspect in her daughter's murder as the inquiry went on. Motivated by the available facts, Detective Carter started assembling evidence against the 42-year-old housewife with a problematic background. In the weeks preceding the murder, Amanda and Sarah exchanged a number of tense texts, which Carter's team discovered. These digital crumbs seemed to confirm the hypothesis of a family dynamic that had broken. In one especially nasty dispute, Amanda accused Sarah of trying to undermine her marriage, and Sarah responded by calling her mother a pathetic, jealous old woman. Amanda's actions following Sarah's passing added to the suspicion. She was upset at first, but she soon turned defensive and evasive when questioned. Her weak alibi for the murderous night was that she said she was alone at home watching TV, and no one could verify her account. A diary concealed in Amanda's bedside table was found during a search of the Wilson residence. Her rising anger toward Sarah was chronicled in entries, when she bemoaned the girl's attractiveness and the attention she obtained from Robert. A neighbor who saw Amanda return home in the wee hours of the day Sarah's body was found seemed to strengthen Amanda's case. One unsettling passage said, "Sometimes I wish she would just disappear. Our lives would be so much better without her constant presence, her judging eyes. Amanda claimed she must have been sleepwalking, a condition she had never addressed before, but she had no explanation for her late-night adventure. Carter felt pressure to make an arrest from his superiors and the media as the amount of circumstantial evidence grew. Fear-stricken, the people demanded justice for Sarah. Once a likable character, Amanda Wilson came to be seen with distrust and disdain by the general population. Carter was becoming more certain that Amanda was guilty, but he still had some doubts. During the questioning, there was something about her terror and desperation that didn't fit the profile of the cold-blooded murderer he thought was responsible for this crime. Still, armed with the proof, he got ready to make an arrest. 3 weeks after Sarah's body was discovered, Amanda Wilson was brought into custody on a soggy Tuesday morning. Her cries resounded across the shocked neighborhood as she proclaimed her innocence as she was escorted from her home in handcuffs. Robert Wilson stood in the doorway and watched his wife being loaded into the back of a police cruiser, his face a mask that was impossible to interpret. Carter had no idea that he had fallen for masterfully planned deception in his quest for justice, allowing the real murderer to escape detection. Even though Amanda Wilson's case was solid, Detective Michael Carter couldn't get rid of the uneasy feeling he had. He could have easily missed the little detail, yet it was what ultimately led him to the truth. Carter saw Robert's automobile leaving his office parking lot considerably earlier than he had stated the night of the murder when looking through security footage from nearby businesses. This disparity intrigued Carter, who made the decision to learn more about Robert Wilson's biography. He conducted follow-up interviews with Robert's clients and co-workers, observing the man's interactions and motions more intently. Carter learned a vital piece of information from Robert's aide during their conversation. Robert had started visiting a coffee shop across town on a daily basis, always during his lunch hour, for an inexplicable reason. A stunning finding was made during surveillance of the coffee shop. Robert was often meeting with his neighbor Elena Gonzalez's wife. There was a closeness between the two that went beyond simple neighborly greetings. Carter had found out about Robert's covert liaison. Carter asked Elena to do another interview after learning this new information. Elena broke down when she saw the evidence of the affair and disclosed the depth of her relationship with Robert. They had been dating for more than a year, seizing opportunities to spend time together whenever possible. Filled with regret, Elena acknowledged that she had misled in her earlier declaration in order to keep Robert safe. Robert's alibi for the murderous night was thrown into doubt by the affair. Robert's assertion that he worked late was refuted by Elena, who acknowledged that they had really met that evening. The meticulously crafted timeline Robert had supplied was completely destroyed by this discovery. Carter discovered a network of falsehoods and covert meetings as he dug more into Robert and Elena's relationship. Robert has recently asked about moving sizable quantities of money overseas, according to bank documents. Email correspondence suggested that they were planning to start a new life together, apart from their husbands and obligations. Now the detective had a serious issue to answer. Is Sarah's killer really Robert Wilson, the bereaved stepfather? Though the reason behind it was unknown, Robert's flawless exterior was starting to show weaknesses. Carter came to the realization that he had been so preoccupied with Amanda that he had almost missed the true story that was being told in front of him. The turning point in the inquiry came from an unexpected source. Emily Chun, Sarah's closest friend, approached Detective Carter, carrying Sarah's personal journal, a small leather-bound volume. Emily, overcome with guilt, acknowledged that she had originally concealed the diary out of concern that it would damage Sarah's memory. But Emily concluded that uncovering the truth was more crucial than keeping her friend's secret safe when she began to suspect Amanda. Carter read through Sarah's private thoughts across the course of a restless night. The diary provided a detailed account of a young woman struggling to process a horrific finding. Sarah wrote in several month-old journals about her mounting suspicions that her stepfather was having an affair. She told of hearing hush phone calls, seeing glimpses of covert text messages, and observing Robert's increasingly erratic behavior. 3 days prior to Sarah's murder, the most incriminating entry was made. She wrote in her trembling hand that she had followed Robert one night and seen him sharing a close embrace with Elena Gonzalez. Sarah expressed in her letter her distaste and sense of betrayal, but she wasn't sure if she should notify her mother or confront Robert. This realization offered the final puzzle piece. Sarah had uncovered Robert's extramarital affair, providing a glaring reason to kill him. Robert, a man whose entire existence revolved around keeping up appearances, was in danger of losing everything, including his reputation, his marriage, and his steady income. Equipped with this fresh data, Carter went over the forensic proof once more. He gave the order for Sarah's garments to be examined in greater detail, with a focus on looking for any hidden evidence. The findings were significant. Fibers discovered on Sarah's jacket matched those from an uncommon wool blend that Robert used to make his pricey suits. Additionally, a reanalysis of Sarah's phone logs revealed multiple calls made to Robert's workplace number on the day she vanished. The brief contacts had raised the possibility that Sarah was attempting to set up a meeting or confront her stepfather. Carter also learned that, only 1 week prior to the murder, Robert had bought a hunting knife from a nearby sporting goods store. The knife fit the description of the weapon thought to have been used in the crime and was noticeably absent from the Wilson residence. Carter saw the magnitude of Robert's deceit as the puzzle came together. In addition to manipulating his community and family, he had deftly turned the entire inquiry against Amanda. The detective was both impressed by Robert's guile and appalled by his callous behavior. With more and more evidence suggesting Robert Wilson was the murderer, Carter realized he had to act fast. It was now evident that the father, who had previously been seen as a pillar of the community, was actually a cunning murderer who was prepared to sacrifice his stepdaughter in order to keep his secrets safe. Detective Carter made the decision to speak with Robert Wilson in his office, away from the curious onlookers and the media who had gathered outside Wilson's house. Entering the opulent premises of Robert's financial advice firm, Carter and his companion saw the picture-perfect Robert in the middle of a client meeting. Robert started speaking, scarcely raising his voice beyond a whisper. They told about Sarah approaching him in the forest and threatening to tell Amanda's and Elena's husband about his romance. Talked about how the thought of losing everything he had worked for overwhelmed him and caused panic. Robert described how, in a state of despair, he had struck out, permanently silencing Sarah, tears running down his cheeks. He let off a flood of self-loathing and regret as he confessed. Robert explained how he had carefully thought out his scheme to incriminate Amanda by taking advantage of the well-known animosity between stepmother and stepdaughter. Robert's first words as Carter arrested him were, "Don't tell Elena. Please don't let her know what I've done." The formerly self-assured man was led out of his office in handcuffs, his world crumbling around him as the reality of his actions suddenly dawned on him. Only a few hours of discussion and a 2-week trial later, the jury reached a guilty judgment on all counts, including first-degree murder. Given the heinousness of the murder and Robert's deliberate efforts to mislead investigators, the judge sentenced him to life in prison without the chance of release. Although justice had been done, it would take a lot longer for the wounds to heal for the people whose lives Robert's crimes had destroyed. Ultimately, Robert Wilson's story serves as a tribute to the human spirit's tenacity in the face of unspeakable tragedy, the unwavering pursuit of justice, and the persistent ability of a young woman's voice, even in silence, to ultimately bring the truth to light.